Hey guys, my name is Jess Remp. Going to be doing our final presentation on the gait analysis across the 4 stages of development. So what we're going to cover is the early childhood, adulthood, and then into older adulthood. Going over some theories and principles as well. We're going to identify some of the common abnormalities in each of the stages they may encounter. So hopefully I don't duplicate too much that's on the PowerPoint. We'll talk about a few different things. So here we go. So with the first one, we're going to go over the infant, a few mechanical factors. Being that they're lacking strength, they're going to have limited muscle strength, range of motion, and then their lower limbs just developing still, and then all that combined can affect the pattern of walking, crawling, all that kind of sort of thing. So like in the video, it shows the infant more of waddling one side or the other, straight-legged. Go over that in my PowerPoint, but at this age, the infant's gait is usually characterized and supported by walking wide. Wide abduction, external rotation of the flexion of the hips. The knees don't flex a whole lot, and the heel is in more of an everted position during their entire walking position. They look a little stiff, but they're developing the skills to progress and get better. Usually by age 7 though, which we'll get into early or into just childhood, their center of mass is changed. It's still higher than an adult, but they're starting to be more balanced, which will help with walking. Ultimately, their head's not leading the charge because it's the heaviest thing on their body. So with that, we'll go ahead and we'll jump right into the childhood gait patterns. And in many of the children, the gait patterns vary, but they're very reminiscent of the adults. It's just less perfected. They haven't mastered the skill yet, but they know what to do. They're just struggle doing it. But you see them progress pretty quickly during childhood years to get that balance. So as the children develop these more advanced skills, you'll start to see, like I talked about with the infants, they have a wider base of support. They're going to start to narrow that in. Walk with their legs closer together. The knees are going to start bending more. The hips are going to flex a little more. You're just going to see, and a lot of it is due to muscular strength. The out-towing is not going to happen as much. So they'll tend to use the forces to move forward as opposed to more left and right. So they're going to be moving in more of a forward plane of motion. So with the adults, the adult transitions all of their weight over one leg as the other is swung forward. They've got the balance, the coordination to pull that off. So in early childhood, definitely not going to happen. In childhood, most of them can do that, maybe not as smooth as we would like, but in adults, it's very common. And as the right leg swings forward from the knee, flexing, hip flexing, the ankles dorsiflexing, the left arm is swinging as the right leg is going. These are all things that help with balance and coordination. And you don't even have to be that strong. They're just strong for being an adult in basic movements. But it's just the balance. Left arm, right leg, the knees flexing, hips flexing, ankles working. So everything in coordination, it's just more of a mastery of the movement. The preferred walking speed increases with the adults compared to the children as well. And also any sport activities, the adults are going to be a little more coordinated. All right, guys, so in a different spot now. I had to transition, but so for older adulthood, there's very similar patterns to adulthood, except for you start to regress a little bit. So it's almost similar to the younger childhood in that you start to go backwards and resemble a lot of the things you did as in childhood to early childhood, as far as shorter steps. You're a little stiffer, you move slower. So Again, just step length. I think there's numbers out there to say, hey, yeah, it's about 3 centimeters shorter, and that could be at a specific age, and as you age, that continually goes down. Um, the older adults, they don't flex as much, so your ankle extension isn't going to be as far as it was when you were younger. The hips, the pelvis area, rotation, extension, all the flexion, it's going to be more limited. You're going to be a little more stiff, like I said, and resemble more of an infant or an early childhood phase of the gait pattern. Um, Walking during older adulthood may be caused by factors such as disease, fear of falling. So there's the mental aspect. So then they start to slow down. They see their friends around them starting to get hurt. They don't want to trip. They're going to get devices to help them move around safer. Or they just start getting a wider base of support, moving slower, shorter steps, all those sort of things, to avoid the issues that come with pain from arthritis or injuries. All right, so for a few gait abnormalities you could encounter, so with kids, is some stuff that's um, genetic that they're born with that could alter their development permanently sometimes. Um, so children with Down syndrome are obviously going to experience delays in different motor milestones compared to a child without Down syndrome, and that all also goes down the line, and it keeps delaying as they get older, and so they're significantly behind sometimes. Um, and so when you meet certain age milestones moving on, even with other diseases, you're just going to be a little behind. But you could have neuromuscular issues, um, cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy. All these things aren't going to go away, and they're going to change the way someone may walk and not resemble anything that it should be at that point in time in their life. Though there's structural issues when arthritis starts to set in, like I talked about with the older adults. So some constraints besides the abnormalities could be like with early childhood is just movement of body parts to learn to do individually. When you're crawling, you stop using things together. Your legs move together, your feet move together. No, you start moving individually. Your left arm separate from your right. They're doing two separate things. So that could hold the child back, or help them advance. Like I said, childhood and adulthood are pretty close, and that it's going to be mostly just development in the childhood era, being exposed to different movements, but also disease, injuries are going to be the main constraints for that age group. And then older adults, like we've already talked about, you're going to have osteoporosis, different structural, mental changes within the body that are going to hold them back.